Good morning and welcome to the called meeting of the Henry County Board of Commissioners for 10 a.m. Friday, January 27, 2012. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'd like to ask for an acceptance of the agenda with the addition of an executive session following item number 5.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Arletta. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. The first item on the agenda is a resolution setting the qualifying fees for elected county officials for 2012. Janet Shelnut, our Director of Elections, or our Election Superintendent, is going to be our presenter. Good morning.
Good morning. You can tell this is an election year. I'm back again. So, this resolution is setting the fees for the elected offices for the election year for 2012. They are based 3% of the base salary of that position. And you also notice at the bottom of the qualifying fees, we have county surveyor. It has to be published, but also by law, you have to put a fee if you're going to publish a position. Now, the position, I think all know that we're trying to turn it from an elected position to an appointed position. This is just in case it doesn't get back from justice in time before qualifying. But I would like to ask the commissioners to set a fee when you make your motion. It could be, I did some checking with other counties. Bibb County, for instance, has a non-salaried appointed by the commissioners at a $10 fee, just because it had to have a fee. Fulton County charges, I think, $300. There are different fees that you set. My suggestion is $100 or something that is just a fee, that would be, and of course this is a precautionary in case it doesn't get back from justice in time. I think we'll have it published in the legal organ, and that's about all, unless there are questions.
Does any board member have a question? Mr. Arletta?
These fees, when collected, are not given to the county, is that correct?
No, part of them. Qualifying this year, as you know, is late. It's May 23rd through 25th, and only a half a day, so it's 2.5 days instead of a week long. But the parties qualify with their parties, the partisan. If you're a Republican, you qualify with the Republicans, Democrats. We qualify the nonpartisan. We get 100% of the nonpartisan and 50% from the parties. They bring a check to me of half of what they take in. Also, they did legislatively move the nonpartisan, which used to qualify in August and go on the November ballot. They put them to July too, so everybody will be qualifying at the same time, which helps us tremendously. Maybe will keep us from having a runoff in December.
Okay. Second question, I guess, is for county attorney. These are base fees, and discussion has been had that there's positions, and we've had recently some things come before the board for approval where additional fees or supplements and whatever else have been paid. Is the law specific as to it being on only this particular figure, or is it supposed to include full compensation as given to these positions?
That's a good question. The law specifically states that supplements are to be excluded from the qualifying fee calculation. So what you see before you is the state law minimum salary. And I'm assuming that is the case because counties may have supplements or they may not. So there's a uniform qualifying fee for jurisdictions of similar population size that's mandated by state law, and that's what you have before you. So you do not include the supplements.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, you have before you a resolution setting the qualifying fees for elected county officials for 2012, and I'd like to entertain a motion with a fee set for the surveyor if the board wishes to go with the recommendation of Janet and place that at $100 or whatever other fee you deem appropriate. Ms. Wyman?
Salary will be zero, because that's a non-paid
The
position.
salary is still zero.
Okay.
Okay, I move to approve with salary at zero and qualifying fee at $100
We have a motion
for
on,
the survey.
okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve with those changes. Is there a second?
Discussion.
All right, we have a second, and we'll entertain discussion.
If this is approved by the state to not have this as a position, this fee is obviously only if they run, not if they appoint somebody, they're going to have to pay some $100 fee, correct?
That's right.
Okay, I just want to make sure that it goes away at that time.
It will. We had to put some type of fee in it to actually publish a qualifying. And I do think we will hear back from Justice after it goes through the legislation in time. This is just, like I said, more of a precautionary in case, so that we could actually put it on the qualifying fee.
And there really should be no reason for them not to approve it other than timing. The only reason being $100 is for somebody paying nothing is,
Right. Well, like we said, it does cost a little bit to be on the ballot and things like that, so we just felt like this fee is something that, by law, we have to set a fee. So I thought it was a minimal fee, but, of course, if the legislation goes through and Justice passes to go to an appointment, we won't have to entertain any of it.
maybe why we had all write-ins last time.
Pardon me?
Might be why we had write-ins last time, avoid the fee.
Oh, we get a lot of write-ins, a lot of write-ins.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion on the floor with a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item, we have a resolution calling for the initiation of loss negotiations with the City of McDonough, Stockbridge, Hampton, and Locust Grove, and our presenter is the county manager.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Board. As you know, the State Department of Revenue collects and distributes a 1% local option sales tax to the county and our 4 cities based on an agreed-upon percentage formula. The state mandates that formula be renegotiated from time to time, and one of those trip points is within 2 years after the completion of a decennial census. We are in that time frame, and the resolution before you calls for the commencement of that renegotiation process. And I would ask for your approval of the resolution.
Does any board member have a question or comment pertaining to this?
We've got, once we've given notice, 60 days to get this negotiations completed, is that correct?
60 days to work through the renegotiation process.
And to the extent we, all the cities and us, cannot come to an agreement, then it goes into arbitration.
Goes to a mediation process, and finally, if there is no settlement, to what is called baseball arbitration before a superior court judge.
So this request here is to say that we're going to start the clock effective February 21st?
February 1st, I believe, LaTanya. The first meeting is scheduled for February 21.
Why would we, if there's 60 days involved, why would we use a February 1 date if the first meeting is not till the 21st?
This will start the clock ticking on February 1, the 60-day clock. When the chairman sends the letter to the mayors, that will give them sufficient time to get their information together, and the initial meeting on the 21st will just be 2 or 3 weeks into that time period.
Well, just 2 to 3 weeks, that's 21 of the 60 days that are gone before we even sit down the first time to negotiate. I would think that, I think we're cutting ourselves short to the extent that unless everybody thinks we can get this done in 40 days.
Totally within y'all's, if you all would like to change and make those dates match, that's fine.
I think the three weeks, to give them 3 weeks to pull the information together before our first meeting on the 21st is important, to give them that time frame. But we also want to make sure that we don't push these negotiations too far into our budget cycle as well, because this is all information that will be relevant to us as we're looking to set our budget, which we'll have to adopt in May. And hopefully we can work through those numbers pretty quickly. If we're not able to get through, I don't think if we're not able to get through pretty quickly on the front end, I think it'll be very apparent that we're going to have to move further into the process and look at some other alternatives. We will know that pretty quickly in the process, I
If
think.
we're of the feeling that they may need 3 weeks to get ready, I can understand that, or give them the time.
Yes, sir.
I guess the only thing I would say is that since the clock is already ticking, we're in the 60 days, that we have the latitude, if they're ready to start before the 21st, that we're not so set in concrete that it has to be the 21st, because if we're allowing them and they're saying we're ready to go, I think we ought to get at the table if we're ready to talk, since we're already saying we're ready to start, and utilize as many days as possible, and if they want till the 21st, it's the 21st. I just look for that option to be available for everybody, as opposed to being so locked in, and I don't know if this letter sets that so concretely, or if just put a, or at your earliest convenience in the letter, just in case that's the case. I just give everybody that
Certainly,
option.
certainly.
Just a thought. If we haven't, I think we should contact the cities to see if they need a 3-week window, because I think they're ready. I think they're waiting on us. And I have to agree with Commissioner Oletta. You've lost 3 weeks into the process that could be critical in the 60-day period. So before we establish the date, why don't we find out if, in fact, they may be ready to come on the 10th. They may be ready to come on. They may need the 21 day. I don't know.
I just think if we change the letter just to say an initial meeting is scheduled for February 21st, or at your earlier convenience, that allows them, since the letter is addressed to them, to come back and say, we're ready. But we've started the clock ticking with that February 1st date. And as I said, if we're starting the clock, it's also putting them under a little pressure to know they only have 60 days from whatever day we start. So that's all. I think we can cover it that way. I think we can anyways, if everybody agrees.
Well, and I think the other reason for that 21st date, too, was to try to accommodate a regular board meeting, since we do have some issues with some commissioners that do travel and have difficulty being here for special called meetings. So we can certainly insert that verbiage into the letter, the cover letter, if that is the wishes of the board. I think that'd be a very easy change to make.
I would like to see that. That gives them an option that they can come early if they see it.
I think that makes sense to reach out to the cities, and I don't think this will come as a surprise to them. They knew it was coming shortly after the first of the year.
They know it.
Are there any further questions on this item? If not, you have before you a resolution of the Henry County Board of Commissioners calling for the initiation of negotiations with our municipalities regarding the distribution of local option sales tax, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Oletta, second by Mr. Stamey. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a resolution requesting authorization to purchase 15 computers for Criminal Investigations and Internal Affairs Division using asset forfeiture and seized funds. And that is a handout before you. Our presenter is Major Jason Bolton of the Police Department. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Police Department has determined an immediate need to purchase 15 computers to replace some in the Criminal Investigations Division as well as the Internal Affairs Unit. 3 of these computers are actually leaking fluid from the screen, while 9 are repeatedly being sent to the IT department for constant repair. There are actually 3 detectives in the CID unit that don't even have a computer, and they're having to share daily with another detective in order to input their notes and type up their case files. We got with our IT guy who spoke with Dell and determined the needs of these detectives, and basically came up with the specs for these Dell computers. We have a state contract there with Dell, and we'd like to, like you said, request authorization to spend seized funds to purchase these 15 computers in the amount of $16,575. That includes the computers, carrying cases, and a service agreement with Dell.
Pertaining to this item? Mr. Oletta?
This is an inventory, and that is, I would imagine there's numerous computers within the force. Have you worked with the IT department? I know they're doing something. We had a meeting about computers and whatever, just overall. Is there some type of a program you're working with IT to identify all the computers and some type of a per year, how many per year you're going to need so that can start being looked at for budgetary purposes?
I am am certain that they are speaking with IT and trying to determine the need, and as far as budgeting for these computers, and I'm not even, I can't tell you whether or not they have been budgeted in the past. I can tell you that with the budget being as tight as it has been in previous years, they have been as fiscally conservative as possible, and they've just tried to do the best with what they've had. But there's actually, I'm quite certain, a need to replace even more, but these are the 15, or they're the most critical, I guess, to have replaced. But to answer your question, we are doing the best that we can and whatever we can to identify the need for these additional ones for the coming years. I believe I've learned from the chief that he's spoken with the chairman, actually, in reference to 2013 possibly being a year to where we replace more computers county-wide, but these 15 are just at a stage that they are the most critical, and they really can't wait until the next year.
Yeah, my issue is on the 15. I understand you need them, and that's that. I just, looking ahead and saying, 2-3 months from now, you get some more to leak or whatever, and of course, it's probably known, as you said, you have some of those. I'm just saying there should be, for the next budget cycle, something that takes all the computers and their ages and says, if you got 200 computers, doing 15 a year is not going to cut it. So
absolutely,
that needs to be identified and hopefully brought forth in the budget cycle this year so that you have the tools. It's unfortunate from what I'm reading that you've got investigators without computers. Investigators may need them pretty much since they do reports of the critical nature, so I would say
every
that's
day,
important.
yes.
So hate to see that. You've done it, the department's done a great job of working within the budget, and appreciate that, and even using seized funds as you're doing. So
thank you.
That's not my issue. It's the issue of making sure next year you're not caught in another box where we find out people are sitting there again without computers to do their job.
I understand, sir.
So appreciate it. Thank you.
And I will share with you, Mr. Arletta, that I've had conversation with Clark Rayner, and of course, we're looking at upgrading the servers in the county, and there's a plan that we talked about extensively that is being funded through our capital expenditures account, and he does have a plan in 2013 to start replacing computers countywide. We have I don't know if you'd call it a fleet, but we have an aging fleet, I guess similar to what we have with our vehicles, and he does have a plan for doing that, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that. And, of course, in emergency situations like this, I guess nobody can predict a screen is going to start leaking and things like that, so we'll probably see a few of those in the interim before we get on that replacement plan. Does any other board member have a question or comment pertaining to this item? If not, you have before you a resolution of the Commission authorizing the use of the asset forfeiture and seized funds for the purchase of these computers, and I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Arletta, second by Mr. Stamey. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. We do have a need for a, thank you. We do have a need for a brief executive session, so at this time I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn into executive session for the purposes of potential pending litigation, personnel, or land acquisition matters. Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Arletta. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. I need a motion to convene into public session. Motion by Mr. Bowman and second by Mr. Holder. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. I need a motion to approve a resolution and affidavit pertaining to executive session. Motion by Mr. Bowman, second by Mr. Arletta. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. At this time, we have a commissioner comment.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. I'd like to apologize to the board. I've got several meetings today, and somehow or another I thought this meeting was at 10:30, and I got here about 10:20, and I missed the entire meeting other than executive session. I want to apologize to the board and also apologize to the citizens that I was not here for that vote.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. We appreciate that. If there's no further business to come before this board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bowman, second by Mr. Holder. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. We stand adjourned.